So the world is kind of crazy right now. In between everything with the election and coronavirus, just in general, things just seem to be falling apart. Everyone is at each other's throats. If you have a different opinion that goes against someone, no matter what side you're on, well, it almost seems like you instantly have to hate them. Things are polarizing. Everything is just crazy right now, to say the least. But the thing is, no matter how crazy the world gets, and no matter how crazy society seems to become, we have to still stay focused on what's truly most important. We have to remind ourselves, as Christians, what are we doing, and why are we doing it to begin with? And so we're going to look at the words of Jesus. We're going to turn to Luke chapter 13, and we are going to be starting in verse 30, and we're going to be seeing Jesus bringing up a parable of the Good Samaritan. And so before, just a little bit of context of why Jesus is bringing up this story, there's a man who's asking him, how do you get to heaven? And Jesus turns the question back to him and says, how do you think? And the lawyer is what it says in the Bible in verse 27, I believe. He replies back saying, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And Jesus looks at him and says, yes, you are correct. And then the man, wanting to know more and kind of egging Jesus on, says, but what does it really mean for you to love your neighbor? And, well, Jesus here in verse 30, which is where we're going to start, that's the question that he's answering. Through this parable, he's going to show us what it truly means as a neighbor to love your other neighbors. So starting in verse 30, it says, then Jesus answered and said, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, departed, leaving him half dead. So first off, we start off with the story, and it says that a certain man, we don't know who, is just going down to Jerusalem on his way there, and as he's there, he gets jumped. He gets jumped by thieves. All of his clothes are taken. Everything's taken from him. They beat him up, and they leave him half dead on the side of the road. I think it's easy to say when we look at this that this man was mistreated. This man was not treated correctly. But now in verse 31, someone finds him. In verse 31, now by chance, a certain priest came down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by the other side. Likewise, a Levite, when he arrived at the place, came and looked and passed by the other side as well. So our dude is on the side of the road. He's half dead, can barely breathe, is barely alive. And, well, the guy who you'd think would be the perfect one to stop by, a priest, a godly man, stops by, sees him on the side of the road, and, well, he looks at him and says, ooh, that stinks. Good luck with that. And he goes on. But not only that, then a second person stops by. A second one. A Levite this time. If you don't know anything about the tribe of Levi, Levites, they were the tribe in the Jewish culture that were in charge of being in the temple. They were also a priestly tribe as well. And so this man, being of that family, that group, he also looks by. But when he arrived at the place, he came and looked and passed by the other side. They both saw this man with their own eyes and the difficulty he was going through, and yet they just passed right by. No compassion, no heart, nothing. And these are supposed to be the religious people. But now in verse 33, Jesus says, but a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. That word right there is the most important word, a word that you can't find in the two previous verses. Verses 31, 32, 33, all very similar, all very similarly structured, contains almost all the same words, except that when he saw him, the Samaritan, he had compassion. Isn't that something that we've been lacking recently? Isn't that something that, well, we just don't really have too much right now? Instead of feeling compassion for people, we often jump to assumptions about them. We can rationalize how they got there. That situation. How did they get there? Oh, well, they probably did this, they probably did that, and that's how they are. And we rationalize it to a way where now we don't even feel bad for them. Well, yes, sure, it might be their fault that they're in that situation, but why is your heart so cold? Why are our hearts so cold that we don't even feel bad for them. These two religious leaders passed right by him, no compassion at all, and yet the Samaritan, this person who was by no means anyone special, he saw him and had compassion for him. We can rationalize how people get into the situations that they get into to the point where we feel like we can distance ourselves from it. Oh, well, it's their fault they got there. I'm not going to help them. But that is not what Jesus is showing us here through this parable. You see, this man, the Samaritan man, his compassion, it led to action. Verse 34. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine, and he set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day when he departed, he took the 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I come again, I will repay you. The Samaritan man, when he came across this person on the side of the road, he had compassion for him. He took care of him. He bandaged his wounds. He cleaned them all up. He set him on his own donkey so that he had to walk, but so that man didn't have to. He brought him to an inn and he took care of him. And on the next day when he was going to leave, he put down some money and said, hey, if this isn't enough, next time I come, I will cover the rest. Don't even worry about it. This man gained nothing from being kind to him. This man gained nothing from caring for him. He did it out of compassion. And the crazy thing is, too, that his compassion, his love for that person, even though he didn't know him, it was greater than any economic, social, political, or racial divide that existed during that time. Samaritans compared to Jews, the Jews hated Samaritans, Samaritans hated the Jews. And yet, well, that didn't matter. This compassion was greater than any economic, social, political, or racial divide that existed. Nothing stopped this man from helping. And so now in verse 36, it says, so which of these, and this is the words of Jesus, so which of these 3 do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? And he said, referring to the man, he who showed mercy on him. That right there, that story struck the heart of that lawyer who was asking Jesus this question. He couldn't even come to bring himself to say the Samaritan because, well, the lawyer was a Jewish man and, well, the Jewish people hated the Samaritans. So he said, the man who showed mercy to him. The ones who should have shown compassion were caught up in their religious duties or just being prideful about themselves. They were so caught up in themselves that they didn't take care of the person who needed them. But the one who helped the man, the one who helped the one who was beaten, taken advantage of, was a Samaritan, not a Jew. Someone who was deemed lesser in society. And now at the end of verse 37, Jesus says, go and do likewise. And this is the crux of everything for this message. Jesus ends with a command to all of his followers. Go and do likewise. Our focus, what we're supposed to be staying focused on, is loving people. It's loving them, having compassion for people. Our focus is to love. John chapter 13, verses 34 and 35 says this, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this, all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Jesus is sharing some amazing things here. He's saying that everyone will know that you are my follower, that you love me, by how much you love other people, how much you love your brothers and sisters, how much you love your neighbor. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't hold your own opinion. It doesn't mean that you can't disagree with people on a political basis, on a personal basis, on a which is better, Chick-fil-A or Popeyes basis. Of course you can disagree with people. But ask yourself this question. Are you more known for your political stance than your love for Jesus? Have we become so concerned about our appearance and our political views that it's stopped us from being loving to our neighbors around us? Do we now jump to conclusions about people because of the one stance that they have here or the one thing that they think over there? Guys, we aren't here to die on the hill of politics. We're here to die on the hill of Jesus. So you can disagree with someone about everything in their life, and you guys can have polarized opinions, but that shouldn't stop you from loving them. This Samaritan man loved that man, even though he was a Samaritan. Think of Jesus. Jesus, though he was hated, he died for the very people who put him to the cross. He died for the very people who hated him. So what are we doing? And why are we doing it? Well, what are we doing? We are not here to convince someone to one way of thought over another. Political, personal, whatever the case may be. We're not here to convince people of ways of thought, but we are here to convince people of who Jesus is. And we can best show that by loving each other. We can best show that by caring for each other. And when you love someone and you show them that you truly care for them, then all conversations become open, all conversations become accessible, and then you just go from there. Love people. This is what we should be focused on right now during this season. During our entire lives, love people. Don't be defined by your political views. Be defined by whom you love. Jesus Christ.